Okay, another little quick driving video. Again, I imagine in another couple weeks when my daughters go back to school, I will be doing more videos at my desk. But it's just a lot easier to do videos right now while I drive. So I prefer I think it works better, the desk approach. It also allows me to use some notes sometimes. I generally, all of my rambles are pretty much, you know, they're rambles, they're improvised. I'm not planning anything, but I do like to write down things that I wanted to talk about. I don't script it though. So anyway, somebody asked me, I've tried to answer this in a couple different videos, and for whatever reason I haven't uploaded them, so I'm going to try this again. And that is that somebody asked me, I forget who it was, I apologize, but it was in the comments a week or two ago, asked me, you know, which watch would you own if you could own only one watch, or own only 3 watches? And he said that either think of it in terms of your current collection, or in terms of any watches out there. And so there's a couple of different ways to answer this. There's both in terms of quantity, what 1 watch, what 3 watches, etc., and also in terms of what I own versus what I don't own. And there's some overlap. I actually, all right, let's put it this way. I don't, you know, in terms of like the tier system, I don't think I really want to own a tier 6 or tier 7, let alone tier 7 watch right now. I just couldn't see myself, like an upper tier 6 watch like the Patek Philippe Nautilus. I couldn't see myself wearing a $40,000 watch. I couldn't walk around with it. Both in terms of feeling safe about wearing it, but also in terms of like, it's not, you know, this could be a lexicon term in itself, tier appropriateness. I think there's something about wearing watches that are roughly within your range, or just a little bit above it in terms of your finances, in terms of what kind of lifestyle you live. I mean, I'm not a tier 6 guy, and I probably will never be a tier 6 guy. Now, maybe someday, way down the line, as my watch tastes inevitably change, I will buy a tier 6 watch. You know, it's certainly possible. I'm actually at my location, so I'm going to bring this down a little bit. It's certainly possible. But I feel like, in terms of what I'm comfortable wearing, what feels like the Johnny casual style, right now the max is tier 5, and I feel more comfortable in the 3 to 4 range. So there's, you know, this is another variation on more expensive isn't always better. It really has to do with you, like with what you enjoy and what you're comfortable with. Some people just feel, they just don't feel at all any resonance with the Rolexes of the world. But to go back to this question, the problem for answering this question is I don't really have an all-time favorite watch. There's not a watch out there in the world that's been made, that I'm aware of at least, that is my quote-unquote perfect 1 watch. It would have to be, if I was just to have 1 watch, you know, I'd have to really love it. And there are watches, I mean, I could say it like, you know, I could talk about my collection, for instance. You know, with the house burning down, the burning down house question, I'd probably grab, you know, like not in terms of, this whole question is, I assume, is not based upon the idea of what you could sell or what you could pawn if it's, or barter with if it's like a zombie apocalypse. It's more about what would be the 1 watch that I would wear and keep and wear for the indefinite future. And of my current collection, it would probably be the Omega Seamaster Electric Blue. I made a video about where I talked about that being my iconic watch. And actually, somebody made the, I think it was Amateur Watch Collector. I'm sorry, I forget your name. CG? Is that your initials? Apologize. I think she said she used the term signature watch. I think it was her. I can't remember. But in response to that video, and I think signature is more what I meant. Your iconic watch is more like, you know, what is the watch that other people identify as being you? Now, maybe that is my iconic watch. I don't know. You tell me. What is the Johnny Casual iconic watch? My signature watch would be my Electric Blue. That would be the watch that I self-identify with the most. So that would be my number one pick. And then if it was 3, it would be that, the Blackbird, and the Seamaster chronograph, the blue one. So those would be my 3 watches. With the silver dial Breitling being just out of that triad. But if I'm talking about all watches that are out there, and then I'm also narrowing it to like tier 5 and lower, you know, like under 10 grand, really under 5 or 6 grand, because it's not a reasonable proposition for me to think of my all-time favorites beyond that realm, because I have to think in terms of what is even conceivably possible, right? I mean, for instance, my favorite tier 6 watch that I can think of is probably the Blancpain Villaret Ultra Grade, I think it's called. It's this beautiful blue dial, the blue dial version. It's a dress watch, actually. But I don't necessarily, like aside from the value and from selling it, I wouldn't necessarily rather own that than my Seamaster Electric Blue. For a daily wear, I'd much rather wear the Seamaster. So to answer the question in terms of what's out there, it would be really, I mean, I'd probably end up, like if I was starting from scratch, it might be the Electric Blue Seamaster. I love the newer ceramic bezel black dial Seamaster chronograph with the chronograph markers are more set up like this one, right? You know, and then there's the Planet Ocean. You know, the closest watch that came to like the perfect watch for me is probably, like in terms of visuals, is probably the Omega Planet Ocean blue dial chronograph. That's probably my favorite watch in terms of how it looks. But the problem with that one is it's too big, so I wouldn't have that on my list. Even the titanium one, it's like 46 millimeters. It's super thick. It's just beyond. It's way too large. If that was 44 millimeters, just a little bit thinner, and you know, all around, then that would go back to being my ultimate grail watch. But it's just, you know, unless I start doing major forearm exercises, I don't feel comfortable wearing 45 millimeters or above. It's too big. So I've also put some thought into like how would you know, what would my perfect watch be as far as like if I could design it. And I'll get to that in a moment. But so to answer this question, is what would be the one watch that I could have among all watches? I can't answer it. It might even be the Seamaster, the Electric Blue. That might even be the one watch that I would have. I would miss out. I guess I would rather have a chronograph, so it might be the black ceramic bezel Seamaster chronograph. But then I'd miss blue dials. You know, so it becomes really tricky, and it's a question I can't really answer, except in the context of what I currently own, and I already answered that. But the other way that I can answer this is to design in my mind the perfect watch for me. And I've played around with this a little bit. It's sort of like a fantasy if let's say I had 1 million viewers on YouTube and I had so much clout in the watch community that Omega contacted me and says, we want to make the Johnny Casual signature watch. Of course, this would never happen. But if it did, what I would do is I'd say, okay, let's start with something Seamastery. I like the Seamaster bezel. Is it scalloped edges? I forget. The general bracelet, although I might have it taper a little bit towards the wrist. I'd probably make it about 43 millimeters wide. So it's a little bit larger than the current Seamasters, but not as large as the 44 or 45 millimeter ones. 43 millimeters wide, 14 millimeters thick if possible. You know, one of the things about this Breitling, it's thick, but it's not Seamaster thick in terms of chronographs. And the reason that is they use a modified ETA 2892. I'm wondering if no, they use something else. Yeah, I don't think that's they use the 2822 modified or 2823 on the non-chrono. But on the chronograph, I think they use something different in the Seamasters. So this is a modified 2892, not 2892. And, but the 2892 is not a chronograph. So they add a Dupois-Dupraz chronograph module onto it. I guess the reason they do that is because it's thinner. It's not hugely thick like some of the other chronograph movements. So anyways, I would do something like that. So start with a 43 millimeter case, 14 millimeters thick, and then I would probably do either a ceramic bezel or a silver metal bezel, and then I would have an electric blue dial, probably wave pattern, like very similar to what I have right now, but with bicompacts, similar to the Planet Ocean chronograph. Bicompacts chrono markers that are ringed in silver metal. And probably the hands would be something similar. I like the Planet Ocean hands quite a bit, more than the sword hands on the electric blue. But probably not the more traditional Bond hands. I do love those, but it's not really what I imagined for this watch. So yeah, it would be similar to an electric blue, but with a bicompact chronograph, a little thicker, a little larger, maybe the same bracelet exactly, or something like that. I've really grown to love this bracelet. It's just an amazing bracelet. So yeah, that's sort of my perfect watch, I guess you could say. There's other watches, but if I could design one watch, that's what it'd be. And that's really my answer to the question. If I could have one watch, it would be the Johnny Casual's Seamaster Special. I would have to come up with a different name for it. All right, talk to you later. And that is that somebody asked me, I forget who it was, I apologize, but it was in the comments a week or two ago, asked me, you know, which watch would you own if you could own only one watch, or own only 3 watches? And he said that either think of it in terms of your current collection, or in terms of 6 or tier 7, let alone tier 7 watch right now. I just couldn't see myself like an upper tier 6 watch like the Patek Philippe Nautilus. I couldn't see myself wearing a $40,000 watch. I couldn't walk around with it. Both in terms of feeling safe about wearing it, but also in terms of like, it's not, you know, any watches out there. And so there's a couple of different ways to answer this. There's both in terms of quantity, what one watch, what 3 watches, etc., and also in terms of what I own versus what I don't own. And there's some overlap. I actually, all right, let's put it this way. I don't, you know, in terms of like the tier system, I don't think I really want to own a tier. It also allows me to use some notes sometimes. I generally, all of my rambles are pretty much, you know, they're rambles, they're improvised. I'm not planning anything, but I do like to write down things that I wanted to talk about. I don't script it though. So anyway, somebody asked me, I've tried to answer this in a couple different videos, and for whatever reason I haven't uploaded them, so I'm going to try this again. Okay, another little quick driving video. Again, I imagine in another couple weeks when my daughters go back to school, I will be doing more videos at my desk. But it's just a lot easier to do videos right now while I drive. So I prefer I think it works better, the desk approach.